Hi everybody, this is Tina Persson at the PhD Career Stories channel. PhD Career Stories is a podcast that is aimed to inspire and energize PhDs and other academically trained professionals in their career development. In today's podcast, I had the opportunity to talk with Lauran Fuller, a mother of three, an entrepreneur and a doctoral student. And for the past 7 years, she has owned and operated as a desert bakery in southern Oklahoma in the United States. She's particularly keen on self-development and work-life balance, as prioritizing her family has posed its own challenges along the way. That is how Lauran Fuller is, describing herself. And today's topic is going to be entrepreneurship and female leadership. So welcome to the podcast, Lauran. I'm super excited to have you on the channel. How are you?
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here and kind of get to share my experience.
Yeah, and I'm so, as I said, excited to present it because I know you have a very, very interesting background. I'm, PhD student and a bakery owner. That isn't that cool? So, my first question here, what I'm really curious about is that, you have started a PhD study and then suddenly you became an entrepreneur and started a bakery. And my question is, what happened, Lauran? What happened?
Yeah, so I started my bakery 7 years ago and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, but I always knew in the back of my head, I wanted to teach. I wanted to share my experiences with people, let people learn from me. And as an entrepreneur, I felt like I was learning so much about starting a business, and how selfish would it be not to share that and help other people start their businesses. So about 3 years ago, I decided to start back and go back to school for my doctorate, and with the intention of working teaching into my days somehow, somewhere. And it was a huge shift from focusing on my business to having to divide my attention. But it was always this drive and desire to help others.
Mm-hmm. And you say you like to help others. In what way are you helping others in the situation you are today?
Well, I'm still finishing my degree, so I feel like I'm not there yet. I'm working on it, but through the program, I've really learned that, I can help people beyond even just teaching. It can even be through consulting. Mm. But I have reached out to so many of the businesses surrounding me. We have such a good community here of business owners. Actually, we have a really great community of women entrepreneurs here. And we all get to kind of share our ups and downs and discuss kind of what has worked for us. But what I have found is I've seen a lot of businesses come and go. So every time a new business comes in, you almost get to mentor the new people that come in, and you get to say, hey, this is how it is, or just expect it, or, just hang on and help them work through it, because most people think they know what they're getting into, but they have no idea.
Yeah,
I tell people it's like having a baby. People tell you it's going to be hard or it's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be worth it. And you go, okay, yeah. And you have no idea until you have that baby and you actually go through it and you're like, oh, this is what they were talking about. It's the same thing with a business. You get people go, oh, that's going to be hard. And you go, okay, yeah, sure. And you don't know, you have no idea until you go through it and you're like, what did I get myself into?
I completely agree, because I thought also that when I started my company, and that is now some years ago, and when I talk with people as well, I say, yeah, it's going to be hard. Yeah, they say. And then, after 1 year, they come back, Tina, is it really, does it really has to be this hard? Yeah, it takes some years, because we had this old expression in Sweden, 7 hard years, 7 good years. I think
that's a good one.
It's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, seven hard years, and then you can pay off a little bit from the business. But going back to your entrepreneurial, you like to teach, you like to help. If you now look on your bakery here, what skills have you learned? What skills are you using that you have? Is there anything from your PhD that you can use for in your leadership in the bakery?
Oh, of course, of
Yeah.
course. Within my doctorate, I focus on business, obviously, and we do a lot in leadership. My specific school, a lot of the professors, that's kind of their focus is leadership. So it's a hot topic for us. And so it's been really fun because through my course, I've been able to do group projects on my business. So every time we'd come up with something, it's like, well, we have to research a business. And I'm like, well, I got one. And so it's been really fun to be able to dive in and really apply the literature to my own business, because as much as like you're looking into it about how to communicate that with other people, how to consult, how to do those things, it has been so beneficial to actually apply it to my business and see it in real time and kind of analyze my business as I go, because 100%, yes, I'm using those things in my business every day and I'm growing, and I think my business is better for it 2 years into my program with, those steady changes we've made.
Just to help the listeners here, you have a bakery. How many people do you have in your bakery?
So I only have about 10 employees. I don't have a whole lot, but it has been crazy because you said the 7 years of hardship. We are coming through that 7th year and I'm finally like, oh, I see the light. Like things are getting better. And I was like, we're going to be fine, you guys. Like we've got this, but it has been a very slow and gradual kind of change. But yeah, I've brought on people steadily. And so now I have about 10 people. And, if I could get more people to get in and work, I'd have more.
You have more. Yeah. Yeah. So help the listeners here. You have 10 people. That means you are leading 10 people.
Yes.
In your bakery. At the same time, you are a PhD student.
Yes.
And you're a mother of 3.
Yes.
How do you get this all together?
I don't sleep.
You don't sleep. Okay.
I'm just kidding. It's a lot. My days are jam-packed full. I would be lying if I said that there's a lot of leisure time. There's not. I, work through the bakery during the daytime. I actually take my children with me. They are still rather small. My youngest is 3 and my oldest is 10. And so during school time, the older 2 are in school, but the youngest one still comes with me. So I'm mom even at work. My kids are there learning to count change and help customers too. But I do bakery day and we come home late afternoons and I cook dinner and I'm mom for a few hours, get the kids in bed. And then I'm student after bedtime and I stay up and I research and I'm writing papers and doing whatever it takes to get that in done. So it is a jam-packed schedule. And it's something that I think as an entrepreneur, you have to have that grit and that persistence to really motivate you and drive you and get you through it. And I think that is what has pushed me through my studies, because if I didn't have that drive, I would have given up a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I'm super curious here, because what drives you? What drives you?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think my personality has a lot to do with it. I just have that type of personality where I want to be productive. Everything that I do, I need to know that I'm getting things done. And I've always kind of set the bar higher and higher and higher because I don't know. I just have this drive to get things done. And so did I have enough on my plate with a bakery and the children? Yes, I did. But I knew, like I said, that I wanted to teach and I wanted to help people. And I knew that getting a doctorate was the only way to that. And so I knew it was going to be a tough few years, and I'm looking forward to the end of that so that I can just finally kind of transition out and spend my time actually helping people and not, researching all night long.
So that kind of what I can listen between the lines here is that you not only have a plan, you have a passion.
Yes.
You have kind of a dream in front of you.
Yes.
Have you pictured yourself in the future as a teacher?
Yes. And I have kind of been working with my staff on what that looks like, getting people in place, getting processes in place, so that I can start taking a hand off of the bakery, because I feel like at some point even as an entrepreneur, if you have a business, it goes two ways. Either you are in your business and you drive your business and your business relies on you, or you set your business up to be scalable, to grow, and to be more than what you can do. And so I've had that struggle, because my business has been, what can I do? And now I'm to the point where I'm like, no, it needs to grow. It needs to be its own. I have to have my hands off of this. And so I'm getting people in place. I'm getting processes in place so it can scale up out of the realm of my control. And part of that is being forced to, because I know, like I said, that I want to do more. I want to teach, I want to consult, I want to help other business owners. And in order to do that, I cannot be at the bakery all day long.
No, you can't.
So I have started telling them, hey, you guys, this is the time frame. Here's where we're at. I need to start taking my hands off of things. We're shifting responsibilities. We're bringing in, people who can manage, trying to be smart as an entrepreneur to make sure your business is successful, but it also isn't dependent on you.
Mm-hmm. And that's a smart, I tend to have, when I work as a coach for PhD students, and, I like to work hard. And then, I say, okay, you like to work hard. That's good. But, what about smart? Working smart. Yes. And this is what I hear here now with you, Lauran, that you work smart. You work hard to become smart. So you're building a business. You build it because you're an entrepreneur. So the business is going to be on its own. And you have worked hard with it, and now you can give it some water and it will still continue to grow. Is that what I
correct.
hear? Yeah.
Yes, correct. But I honestly think that if it wasn't for my doctoral program, that I would probably have a harder time letting go. And so it has kind of been a blessing in disguise, because part of me was, as an entrepreneur, you think, well, I'm either going to fall flat on my face and I'm going to have to close shop, or I'm going to just excel and everything's just going to come to me. And you're not ready for the in-between of well, we're doing just fine, but I have to be here and I have to be the driving force every day. And so when you finally kind of get to that point, that's a hard decision. And so my studies have made me see that and made me address it and made me find what path I want to move forward. And so I'm totally grateful, because it has been a great experience.
Yeah, I can hear that actually being a PhD student have forced you, and I can also hear you got support from there to actually think, now I have to make my business live without me. Yeah. Yes. Otherwise I can't prioritize my children either. So it's a very smart way of doing it. In order to do this, you have to build people. How do you build the people so they can run your business?
A lot of it comes into empowerment. You have to let people know that they can make decisions, that they have the authority and they have the capability to do that. And a lot of times it's finding the right people. And as I've, gone through staffing changes, it's one of those things that you start to realize that sometimes it is that person that has the passion and the driving force to want to do better and want to make those decisions and learn, than it is to find somebody who maybe has a good skill set, but they can't make decisions. And so it really boils down to staffing. You find the people with the right personalities that fit your organization, and you nurture them and you encourage them, and you continue to just tell them yes, you can do this. Yes, you have the authority. No, I'm not going to be mad at you if you make a mistake. I'm constantly telling people that. I have a new employee right now, and I keep telling her, I'm I will not be upset if you mess stuff up. It is part of the training process. I want you to mess up. I want you to mess up. I said, you don't know, I know what I know because I've messed up 1,000 times. I was you have to do the same thing. I can tell you all day long and you won't remember, but when you mess up, you remember. And so that kind of takes the weight off of them of, oh my gosh, you're a real person. You messed it up too. You don't ever do everything perfect. Oh. But at the same time, it kind of empowers them to know it's okay if I mess up, but as long as I'm learning and I'm growing, then that's the important thing. And so that's how I try to be with my staff, is to make sure that we're focused on the end game and not the today.
Oh, wonderful. Because, you know, think about it being a perfect leader, then you scare people, you know. It's nothing like that. No one is perfect. And that's the beauty with working with people. But, you know, these skills of building people, is that something you're born with or something that you have learned from someone?
I think it's definitely a good combination. I think some people have that natural inclination to know how to lead people and to recognize it, and they've learned from their own experience. But there is definitely something to be said about also learning from, you know, prior research. I mean, even through my studies, we've learned a lot about leadership. And even though I feel like I semi have a good grasp on it, by going in and reading that and seeing what has worked and what hasn't worked, or why and in what circumstances it's worked, has definitely given me more perspective. And I know there are people in my cohort who do not have the same natural inclinations, and they are so determined to learn, and they're trying to take what they're learning in our course and take it back to their business, and they're finding success with it. And I think you can go either way with it, but I really think that to be like an amazing leader, you have to have a little bit of both. For sure. For sure. I mean, I think there's only so far you can go either way. You know, at some point in time, you have to have a little bit of both.
It feels for me like you have a natural talent for it, but I also have a feeling of you like it.
I have always been that person where if nobody else was going to step up, I'll come get the job done. I did not want to raise my hand and be like, oh, let me do it. Let me tell everybody what to do. But I was always the person in the back and be like, fine, I'll do it. We'll get it done. Let's go.
Yeah.
and then of course, everybody's like, well, we know you don't have a problem telling people what to do. And I'm like, well, if you want to get things done, then we'll do it. But I'm not jumping at the chance to boss people around.
No, you are a clear doer, if I put it that way, you know. You know, it's a good skill to have, you know, because, you know, if you do things, you know, and then, of course, if you say it's okay to fail, that's why we're here, you know, then people learn and they learn, you know, it's okay. And that's how we grow together. So wonderful skills. And we are coming into a little bit what, you know, we discussed here and prior to this podcast here when we planned a little bit, and that is leadership, entrepreneurship, and women. Yeah. And, you know, when I talk with women and they're sitting dreaming, yeah, you know, I like to have my own company and like to have people, but, you know, I'm not the leader and I'm not an entrepreneur and I don't know if I dare to do it. You know, there's so many excuses and worries. And I know we have people listening here. Like they're sitting thinking that, how is Lauran doing this? 3, 2, God, I wish I could do it. So I said, you know, do you have some tips? Well, you know, these women listening here, what would you tell them?
Well, I will definitely say when I started my business, I did not ever have the intentions of having 10 employees. I thought I was going to have like one person work with me. We were going to have this cute little shop. It was going to be no big deal. I did not want to be a leader, so to speak. I did not want to be a manager. I did not want to like have all these people under me. And so I would have girls talk to me about where I'm at my business. And I said, this is not what I wanted. Like, this was not my intention. And they're like, what do you mean? How could this not have been your intention? And I said, this just wasn't the idea I had in my head when I started it. And it grew. And you have to embrace it and you have to, you know, go with the flow. And I said, but it's been a learning curve because managing people, I did not think was my strong suit at all. And so when people are like, oh, you're a leader, I'm like, am I though? Yeah. And they're like, well, you have to be. And I'm like, I just go to work and I get things done. I like, isn't that what everybody does? I don't like, how am I different from anybody else? But if I had to like give tips to people, I would tell you to do what you love. I think that's the main thing behind entrepreneurship is finding that passion, know what you want to do and stick with it. It is difficult because most people don't always understand what they're getting into with entrepreneurship. They don't understand the hard work that goes with it. But as women, you will find that a lot of times it's more than about the money. There's so many other intrinsic motivations behind having a business that is valuable to women. And a lot of it is enjoying what you do, or having your ability to manage your time and make time for your family. Those are things that are more valuable. And sometimes you have to sit back and reprioritize. And I think that's important, that as a woman, you sit back and you know what you want and you know what's important to you, and you prioritize those things. And then you are willing to do the work to make it happen. Beyond that, I would say, do not let people scare you. When you have to lead people, there's always conflict. You are always going to have people who oppose you, or who clash with your personality, or who just don't like the way you do things. You have to have a very firm handle on what you are doing, why you are doing it, and how you intend to get it done. Because at the end of the day, it is your business and you get the final say. And you cannot be discouraged by naysayers. You have to really have this, like, your feet firmly planted. And I will say that's hard to do by yourself. You 100% need a support group. You have to have those people around you who can help hold you accountable and help you stand firm, because you're going to have opposition at some point in time. You're going to get your feelings hurt. There's going to be somebody who says something to you that, makes you doubt everything you've done. So yes, know that you're going to come into that. And beyond that, I would say, I'm trying to think of what else is a good one for our listeners, because there's so much, there's so much.
Yeah. And
where do you stop?
Where do you start? But I would nail it down a little bit. I wrote some things down here, because you see, when I talk with women, they want to do what you've done. I get a feeling sometimes they listen to too many people. Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe listen to the wrong people. The people that tell all the scary stories. Listen to the one that say, you can't do that. You lose all the money. It's super risky. Take a safe job. And then, by the way, you have 3 children, so women start to downplay themselves. Now, everyone told me it's not possible. Then they say, everyone told me. And I said, who is everyone? And then it turns out to be 2 people, something like that. Have you, is this something that you have felt and you just simply managed to live that over? You just didn't listen to it. You just decided, no, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to downplay myself. I'm not going to listen to all the people that warning me.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we all get it. I get it. I know. And I go back to your 7-year statement here. Like, I love it so much, because I can remember, you go through these entrepreneurship class and they tell you, well, expect not to make any money for a year or 2. And then after that, it'll be fine. Well, I remember being in year 3 and having a conversation with my dad, and him going, okay, if you're not making any money, it's just a hobby, Lauran, you have to let go. And I was just like, but I feel like we're at a turning point. I feel like, you have that gut feeling of where you're at in your business and where you're going. And it's more, like I said, it's more than the money sometimes. And it was more than just my dad. You've got lots of people who are like, well, how's it going? And, if you're honest with people, they go, then why are you here? What are you doing? Like, I don't understand. And so you almost become guarded a little bit. But you have to find the people who understand your motivations, who understand where you're at and can support you. But you are going to have people that come in and just go, you're crazy. You're crazy. You don't have time for this. You need to be spending more time at home, or you're not making enough money. You need to just call it quits. And they don't understand the full picture, because there's so much more to it than just, a bottom line number, or how much time you have at home for a certain period of time. So yes.
Yes. And you have to build a shield, to all these people that kind of warn you. I sometimes say, maybe they are jealous. You don't know why they are warning you. But, is there something else that I hear women tell me, and that is, you know, I have children, and, you know, when I'm running my business, they give me that kind of bad self-confidence, because, you know, they say, you know, it's sorry for your children. Your mom is working all the time. She's running the business. Have you never thought about your children? So, you know, they play you with the children. Is that, you know, what kind of advice would you give there for women having children?
I think it depends on the age of your children. I think it depends on if your children are in childcare or if they're with you. My children, like I said, have grown up in my business. When I started my business, my second child was 6 months old. My oldest was like 3. And so now I have a third child, and my oldest one is 10. They've grown up. That's all they remember. That's all they know. But they're with mom. And now mom doesn't always have time to sit and, you know, play with them or pay them attention, but they're with me, and they're there, and they're in their business, and they're growing. Now, if my children were in daycare and I had them in daycare 12 hours a day, I would have a completely different perspective about it. But they're not. And if my kids were teenagers and I was at the business all day and they were at home, I would have a different perspective on it. But because I've been fortunate in and that was honestly part of the reason I built my business the way I did, because I knew I needed to have my children with me. So I was very intentional in how I planned that to fit my family and what I wanted. But because they're with me, it is a very different dynamic. My kids, I don't feel like are suffering in the way some people would like to think, because they are with me. And, you know, they have their own little area, and they have their own little setup where they get to have toys and play, and they're fine. But it is different in every situation. But more than anything, I get people come in and they'll go, "This is great that your kids are with you." And I'm like, I really appreciate that. Like, that you're not annoyed that my children are running, but they'll say, "This is wonderful," because you start hearing stories from other people saying, "Well, I grew up in my parents', business, or my grandparents' business, or, I learned so much, or this is so good for them." And you start to realize the community support of, even the older generation that are seeing how the younger generations maybe are bringing up their children, and how it is so vastly different, and how they're so disconnected. And they really value and appreciate seeing them in the business and growing up, the way it used to be 50 years ago.
Yeah, it was like that. When you were a farmer, my mom and dad were farmers, and the children, they were part of the business when they were farmers, and that was a big business in the United States. So this is also something I have, what I would tell the listeners, that maybe it is so that, starting your business as a woman is good for your children. You get a more flexible life than, having, 8 to 5 job.
Yes. Yes. I told my husband, because he's, got a normal works 50 hours a week job. And I was like, what would we do if I had a 8 to 5 job? Like, would I be the one taking off every time they needed to go to the doctor? Would I be the one taking off every time they got sick and had to stay home from school? Like, how would this have worked if I needed to have an 8 to 5 desk job somewhere? I was like, it never in a million years would we have been able to juggle that. And so for me to have the flexibility of owning my business and to be able to say, hey, I've got to stay home today, or, we're going to leave for a few hours, has been phenomenal. Like, I don't know how I would have functioned otherwise, because we do what we need to do. And I have been very intentional in setting my business up in a way to support that. And again, that goes back to, like, knowing what you want and working hard to set it up the way you need it set up to fit your desires, your passions, and also like what you expect out of your job.
Yeah, and not only that, you said work-life balance. What I hear from you here, Lauran, is that you have designed your life so it fits to you.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I'm a life designer.
Life designer to your own life. I designed it so it fits to me.
That's right.
Yeah.
I feel like so many people just don't feel like they have control over their life, and they don't realize that entrepreneurship is a really valid way to design your life the way you want it to be. But that doesn't make it easy. No. It is still a lot of work, and it is still a lot of stress, but you get to dictate and you get to design exactly what you want.
And you have done that. It's super amazing. And it's also, I want to to get back to something you said, that when you started, people, when you didn't earn money, they say, oh no, it's a little hobby you have. You know, many women hear that, you know, oh, you're going to start your little hobby. Yeah, but you know, a hobby can grow. A hobby can be
Yes.
big.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's also starting step by step and grow into your business is actually a good thing. You know, it could be better than just thinking big and, oh yeah, I'm going to have a big business in 3 years, because it gives some feeling of anxiety. Oh, I failed after 1 year. But if you have an expectation of a hobby and you build it slowly, you grow into it. And that is what I hear what you have done, Lauran. And then you have designed
Yes.
life around it. And that, you know, becomes a driving force for you.
Yes. Now, I will say I've been very lucky because my husband's profession has afforded us the ability to do that.
Yeah.
I know not everybody's in that situation, but yes, it has definitely been a journey, and it has been something that taken those 7 years, Tina, those 7 years.
Yeah, totally. 7 years. And you know, you can have a dream. Let's say you don't have a husband supporting, but you say you have a dream. You can still have a job, as I say, that is taking some attention from you. It's not the perfect job, but it doesn't make you so tired so you can't have that little hobby that in the end starts to grow to your business. You know, that's another way of doing it.
Well, that's how I started, you know. I started out, okay, so I own a bakery, yes, right? I started out doing cake decorating out of my home, and it was just kind of this hobby that I was making, you know, my siblings' birthday cakes, and people were like, oh, that's great. Can you make me one? And before I knew it, I had built this home business, and I looked at my husband and I said, I'm either starting a business and getting all of this out of my house, or I'm quitting because it's overwhelming our kitchen. And he was just like, okay, do whatever you want to do. And so I started a business. But it started out as this like hobby where it's like I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It wasn't just like, let's just go start a shop. You know, like anybody who started a business knows it's normally a passion that has grown into something that you are able to turn into a business. You don't just say, hey, I want to own a candy store. I don't know anything about candy. And you just go, no, like that's not how businesses thrive. Let me put it that way. You can start a business that way, but you have to have some sort of driving passion behind it.
Yeah, you tested the market, you know, you knew there was a need on the market for it.
Right.
You need a support system, and I'm quite sure you have a support system, maybe not advisors, mentors, but someone, you know, that you talk with. Is that something you have, and who are these people?
You know, I did not surround myself with as many people as I should have initially. And I think it was because I just didn't know who to reach out to. It was just kind of one of those things where you're like, well, I just know I want to do this, but I don't really know anybody who knows anything about it. And I mean, my parents were a huge support. My dad is a very intelligent man. And so he and I would get together and kind of just conspire and go over ideas and sort through things. But it wasn't until I got into the business and I started building those relationships with fellow business owners that you started to kind of find those people that you could ask the questions of. And then past that, going to the doctoral program was a huge thing, because now I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all these resources. And I just go in and go, okay, so let's just say we're applying this to, and that was an amazing resource to like have these people that, I mean, like a lot of the professors, they consult huge businesses on these things, and they have seen it in business. They've seen it in practice, and I'm able to sit here and pick their brains and apply it to my business. And that was better than anything I could have asked.
Yeah, that's a perfect combination what you've done there. You know, you actually, you succeed, you go for the doctorate, and you can apply that to your bakery. So it's not only so that you study the theory, you also do it in practice. I mean, you're going to be a wonderful teacher. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, well, that was the goal. But, you know, I was even telling him, I was like, I just even want to keep my business going so I can use it as like a teaching tool, that it's like, hey, this is real time. Here's what's going on. Like, what are we going to do about it? And, you know, just use it as a teaching tool, because like, who gets that? Who gets that in an educational program? Those are not normal things that you see in classrooms.
No, it's not. You're going to be the teacher that's like, do you know what, guys? I have done it. So it's not only theory. So that's really a raw model. Yeah, wonderful. So we're coming a little bit to an end here, but I still want to explore a little bit about, female and female leadership, female entrepreneurs, because I talked with a specialist in assessment, and he has done a lot of assessment of women and men and started to compare a little bit. Are there any differences? And he said, yes, we can see that if there is a business that needs a change, when women go in as leaders, in fact, there will be a change. But it tends to not be the same pace of it when men go in. So there is something that women do differently. And he said it's also very clear that women has a natural talent for, this emotional IQ, get the team together, listen and implement. What are your reflections around that?
There's definitely a difference. And if I had to give my perspective, I would say that women are team builders. We are more communal beings. We need community around us. And I feel like anytime I've been in an organization where men are leading it, it's very top down, very here, I tell you what to do, you do it. Whereas women come in and they're like, let's work together. Let's work through this as a team. And I think that goes a long way for empowering people to do their job and to want to do their job and engaging them in what they're doing. Are all women and all men that way? No, of course not. But in general, like women just have this natural inclination to want to work together. And I think that's why women have a hard time identifying as leaders, because they don't want to be leaders. They want to be team members. And so that's why you see them stepping back. They're like, no, I'm part of a team. Like we do this together. Like I don't lead them. Like I don't tell them what to do. I am building this team. And I think that honestly is what ropes people in to wanting to be the best they can be.
And I think you are pointing on something that the corporate world need to learn. They are trained to see the leaders who are pointing hand, top down. So they don't see the real leaders, the one that actually make the change, that maybe are the women that care about the team, because it is, to get the team around, you make a change. Because when the team understand, okay, then they go to the right or to the left and you have a change. It's not by pointing hand. So I think you're pointing on something that we need to look on on new leaders in a different way. And I think we may be heading to that in the future. And because we are talking about new leadership post-corona. And from what I understood, it's a lot of discussions, not only about diversity, inclusion, but it's, understanding teams' need. Because when you understand teams' need and you can work through people, you can actually walk around the corner or see around the corner. And a leader like that, they can take a spontaneous decision and take the right decision because they already know, because they learned it from the team. And isn't that really a female leadership? Isn't that how we women work,
I would like to think so. I mean, again, we can't stereotype completely here, but in general, yes. I mean, it's kind of like talking about stepping back from my business. That's the whole point, is to build this team so that you can see where it's going and you can take everything because you've got everything in place, but it is all about building that community.
It is. So to the listen here, any women listening here, and so listen now carefully here, that if you always say, oh, I'm a team member, I like to be in a team, think again. Maybe you are that leader that no one sees.
Yeah. Well, and just because you have a team doesn't mean everybody's equal, doesn't mean you don't have natural leaders. You still have to have people that guide along the way, because teams are built up of various personalities, and you're always going to have some natural leaders, and you're always going to have some people that need a push. And you can't expect, just because you've built a team environment, that people are just automatically going to be empowered or that they're going to want to actually do what needs to be done. And so even within a team, there are still some roles and there are still some people that have to be leaders or captains or whatever you want to call them, that can go around and encourage and push and kind of nudge people in the right direction. Like, just because you have a team doesn't mean you don't have leaders. You still have people that need to step up and fill some of those gaps.
I completely agree with you. So let's now start to come to the end here. And I always let the invited guest make a kind of a conclusion here. And if you now speak to the listeners here, and you have now women sitting there, go, yeah, I like to go for that leadership. If you know they are dreaming a little bit, and I think 3 very short tips, very, very short tips, 3.
You're narrowing it down on me. Okay.
Yeah, I narrow it down a little bit here. So they think, okay, yeah, if I do 1, 2, 3, that could be a good start.
Yes, I would say nail down your passion and your desires, design a life that fits that. And finally, I'd say pursue it, go after it. Don't let anything stop you. Nothing should stand in your way if you know what you want. Find the community that supports your direction and your decisions and are going to help guide you through it, because just because you've decided what you want to do, you've decided to pursue it, doesn't mean that the follow through is going to be easy. So I would definitely say, make sure that you decide what you want to do, how you want to do it, and build the support to do it with.
I think that's super good tips, Lauran, and you are absolutely a role model. So in connection to the podcast here, you will have more information about Lauran, where you can find her. You will maybe even find a bakery if you go to the United States and Oklahoma, and definitely a LinkedIn profile and etc. So thank you very much, Lauran. It's absolutely a pleasure to have had you here in our podcast. I'm super proud of that. And to all of you listeners, we'll be back. This is Tina Persson. I hope you enjoyed this podcast here with Lauran, and have a great day and speak soon.